Hi guys, in this video, we're going to talk about sampling. Okay. See, whenever we study society, right? So what's the ultimate reducible element when it comes to society? Individuals. So to study society, you need to study individuals. But is it practically possible to collect data from every single individual in a population? No, right? See, imagine you trying to interview every Indian citizen to understand the attitude towards caste discrimination or the problem with women or domestic violence. That's nearly 1.5 billion people. So how is it possible? So how do sociologists collect reliable information without studying everyone? That's where sampling becomes essential. Okay, so what do you mean by sampling? See, sampling means it's a process of selecting limited number of units from a larger population so that the sample accurately represent the entire population. I'm not taking one or two. I'm selecting a group. So that's the sample, or that's the representation of the entire population. All the characteristics of the entire population will be part of the sample. Or in other words, instead of studying all, we study some, but in such a way that these some that we have picked as a sample that reflect the characteristics of whole, right? So where it is mainly used when the population is large, we don't have any options. We have to use sampling. And when full data collection is uneconomical or infeasible. So these are the situations we use sampling normally. So sampling basically save time, save money and effort, but still it will allow generalizations about the whole society. Now, there are certain steps that we need to see. Guys, this is a revision session. So the actual discussions are already over and the PDF, the detailed notes and everything is given along with the handouts. So this is a quick session. 20 minutes, I'll finish the topic. Okay. So what are the steps? Define the population first, right? That means who are we studying? For example, I'm going to study and understand the problem of working women in Delhi. So the target group, define the population. That's the working women in Delhi. And then prepare the sampling frame. So that means the complete list from which we'll select the respondent. And then the third step, decide the sampling method. There are different types of sampling that I'll be discussing. That's part of this. So probability or non-probability sampling. And then draw the sample. That means you begin the data collection. So 4 steps: define the population, prepare the sampling frame, and decide the sampling method. And then you need to take the sample. These are the 4 steps. Now, what are the types? As I told you, broadly, there are 2 types: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So let's start with probability sampling. In that also multiple types are there, methods are there. So probability sampling means every element of the population has an equal chance of being selected. So 10 members are there means each of the members have equal chance of getting selected, and that basically ensures objectivity, that ensures proper representativeness, and is widely used in quantitative positivist research. So quantitative methods mostly prefer probability sampling because everyone have equal probability of getting selected. That means that ensure objectivity, and that means that ensure proper representation of the entire population. So that's what the positivist use. That's what the quantitative approach prefer. Now, in that, let's start with one by one. Simple random sampling. That's lottery method. So I'll quickly discuss this. Important points only. We cannot explain everything. So here, every unit has an equal chance, like a lottery draw. Like you have this and you'll take one, right? So random numbers or computer algorithms are normally used, especially in today's context. That's easy, right? And that basically remove the bias of the investigator, and that gives the highest degree of representativeness, and you can say higher degree of objectivity. For example, I want to select 500 voters randomly from an electoral roll of an entire district to understand the political preferences. So I'm taking 500 voters. That means I'll randomly select. This is a kind of lottery method, right? So then this is systematic random sampling. So this is not pure random, right? Here selection follows a fixed interval. For instance, it's like every 10th name on the list. So that's what there is a systematic way it is defined, right? So I have, let's say, 5,000 members. I'll select every 10th member. So it's not purely random. That means these 10th numbers, 10, 20, or 30, 40, 50, or fifth member, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, like that. So selecting every fifth household in a street for a survey, or every fourth household. That's all. We cannot select every household. So rather than that, in a city or in a street, we'll select third house. Every third house. So third I have selected, then 1, 2, next third I will select, 1, 2, next third I will select, like that it will go. Cool. Now next is stratified sampling. So this is a refinement of a simple random sampling basically. So the population here will be divided into strata based on certain variables. It could be age. So you'll divide like maybe 5 to 18, and then 18 to 40, 40 to 50, like that. So it could be based on age, it could be based on gender, it could be based on religion, it could be based on education, it could be based on class, whatever. That's what stratified, right? So here, from the stratified one, then random sampling, right? So each strata, you have stratas, like age base means maybe 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, and then each of these. From there, it is random. So in that particular strata, every member have equal probability of getting selected. So like that, from each you will select. So that will enhance representation of all groups, and that will ensure that no section is excluded. But if you put all these together, then we don't know whether you are getting more from this 0 to 10 group or 60 to 70 group, like that. So here, when you stratify like this, that have, more probability or more better representation of each of these groups, right? Middle class, lower class, upper class, male, female, this division. And from there, normal random sampling. So like, for example, studying education levels by taking equal samples from rural, urban, male, female, upper, lower class groups, like that, right? So what is the advantage here? It is going to be more precise and more representative. Disadvantage is there because it is difficult to identify the strata accurately. So that complexity is there to analyze. Next is cluster sampling. See, this is basically used when it's impractical to list all members of a population, right? So here the population is divided into clusters, like area-based or organizational cluster. So some clusters are selected randomly. So here it's impractical to list all the members of population. So what you do is area-based, or you will divide into cluster. Population is divided into, this is one cluster, this is another cluster, this is, so like this, different clusters. And you will select some cluster randomly, and all members within that selected cluster will be studied, right? So just like initially, there are members randomly you select. Now these members, this will be grouped into a cluster. It's not stratified sampling. There is a criteria. Here it could be area based, like that, a cluster, or organizational based, a cluster. And then any one you will select randomly, and entire population of that will be studied, right? So sometimes it will be extended into multi-stage sampling also, like you start with state, district, block, village, like that. That's what multi-stage sampling. For example, for a national survey on education, you select few states, and then districts, and then schools. That's how, instead of taking the entire nation, you first go with the states, few states, not all states, and then districts from that states, then schools. Not all districts, from that state, few district, and not all schools from that district, few schools. Not all states from the nation, few states. Got my point? Not all states, few. And then few states, then few districts, and then few schools, rather than studying the entire nation. So what's the advantage in this case? It's economical and more feasible. But the disadvantage is it's less representative, and higher sampling error will come, because you see unselected clusters that remain unstudied, and they may exhibit some other characteristics also. So if you look at this, from the perspective of stratified sampling, or if you have any confusion whether it is similar to stratified sampling, I'll make it very clear. Let's start with the objective. When we talk about stratified sampling, the objective is to enhance the representation. But when it comes to cluster, it is basically to reduce the cost. So in stratification, we are taking from each strata. Here it is cluster. In the cluster also, upper, middle, lower class, male, female, rural, urban, everything can come, right? Now, if you look at the another aspect, population, the nature of population. In stratified sampling, it is heterogeneous across strata. but homogeneous within stratum, right? For example, upper class, middle class, lower class. It's heterogeneous, different across strata. But within strata, it's homogeneous. Now, cluster sampling means there's an area. So within the cluster, it is heterogeneous. But within the strata, it is homogeneous. Within the cluster, it is heterogeneous. Across the strata, it is heterogeneous. Within the strata, it is homogeneous. So that's the population nature. So now itself, you got the difference between stratified and clustered. Now, accuracy will be high when it comes to stratified. It will be lower because of more sampling error, missing representations in the cluster sampling. Cost and time will be higher in stratified sampling and lower when it comes to cluster sampling. So if you need to reduce the cost, cluster sampling. If you need to increase the accuracy, stratified sampling. Okay, now let's move on to non-probability sampling. See, in many sociological studies, this random selection is not possible. Sometimes the data may not be available. It's even if it is available, it may be inaccessible, maybe cost is higher, or the target group is hidden, like drug groups or the dark web members or the criminals or the marginalized groups. So it's hidden. You can't go and get it, right? So in such cases, what the researchers will do is they'll use non-probability sampling, where the selection depends on the researcher's judgment or accessibility, not on the chance, not on equal chance. So here there is no equal chance like in case of probability sampling. Now, what are the common types here? Convenience sampling. It is also convenience, or it is also known as accidental sampling. So it's based on the ease of access, convenience, selecting whoever is readily available to you. More subjectivity will be there, of course. So this is common in pilot studies or exploratory research. For example, interviewing factory workers who are easily approachable at a site. What's the limitation? Highly subjective. May not represent the population also. You see someone, you're asking to them. Right. Next is purposive sampling. So here the researcher chooses the unit that best meet the purpose of the study. So researcher choose that unit. Okay. Now the characteristics here are predefined. So the selection is deliberately done by the researcher. For example, studying socioeconomic mobility among men aged 40 to 15 urban areas. It's predefined. So different variants are there. Again, here in this quota sampling and snowball sampling. These are two subtypes of purposive sampling. So what do you mean by quota sampling? Quota sampling is basically used to ensure representation of important categories like 40% women, 60% men. Quota, right? So here interviewer basically select the respondent non-randomly until the quota is filled. Not randomly. If randomly you select, unless it is stratified, the quota may not be filled. Right? So here, non-randomly, you will select till the quota is filled. That's what quota sampling. And the advantage is quick and cheap. Limitation is, of course, researcher is selecting researcher bias. It's not a true random sample. Of course, it's not possible. This Clive seal that you can mention, I've given in the PDF, noted in 2012, quota sampling is quicker and cheaper than random sampling. And in some situations, such an election day surveys, like these kind of election day surveys, it may be the only choice. Next is the other subtype is snowball sampling. Here, it basically works on referral principle. One participant you come across, and then it's all referral. Like I'm going to study, adultery, or I'm going to study domestic violence. Don't think I always talk about these topics. Okay, domestic violence. Now I got one person. She's facing domestic violence. So now I got one. Now I'll ask her, who else you know who's facing the problem? So I got the referral. Then it will go like that. So that's basically ideal for hidden or hard to reach populations. So it's a referral principle. For example, drug addicts, sex workers, right? So you contact one person and other, it will go like that. So the advantage is it basically enable access to the invisible population. Limitation is lack of randomness. It lacks that randomness and limited generalizability. Then see, probability sampling, we discussed some simple, systematic, stratified cluster. Non-probability sampling, convenience, purposive, and quota snowball, right? So probability sampling is basically used in quantitative research, and it's very much representative and objectivity is higher. So positivist approach normally. Non-probability, it's flexible. So the flexibility part is there, and more of exploratory research or qualitative research or non-positivist. So the easy way to remember this is non-probability, non-positivist. Non-positivist means qualitative, right? Subjective. Probability, positivity, positivism. So just remember non-probability is non-positivism. Then it's easy, right? The other one is positivism and quantitative. Now, there are what are sampling errors and biases? See, even the best samples can have errors. Now, what are the reasons why you get this error? It's a faulty design or wrong frame. It could be non-response. It could be interviewer bias. It could be the subject bias. That means the respondents giving, socially desirable answer. That not exactly the reality. What is expected, that's what you get from that person, right? Now, two types of errors. One is sampling error, non-sampling error. Sampling error means when a sample data differ from population data due to some small sample size or wrong representation. That's what sampling error. Non-sampling error is mistakes during the data collection or recording or interpretation part. How to reduce this? Ensure proper design, choose adequate sample size, train the investigator as Weber said, and validate data scientifically. Right? What are the questions you can get here? Differentiate between probability and non-probability sampling, explain stratified samples with examples, discuss the significance and limitations of sampling in sociological research, right? And in paper two also, sampling concepts indirectly appear in some questions like village studies, NSSO surveys, related questions like that. So guys, when we talk about sampling bridges the gap between the theoretical sociology and the empirical fieldwork. And it allows us to understand society scientifically without studying every individual, just by studying the representative portion of the sample. So it's if you have a well-designed sample, that produces valid generalization of the whole. And if it is a poor sample, that can distort the entire study or the social reality also. So remember, the credibility of your sociological findings depends less on how much you study and more on how well you sample or how well you collect the representative, right? Or how well you choose that population that is under study. So what we discussed, let's quickly cover what is simple random sampling. Here there is an equal chance. It's the lottery method. That's the example. Lottery. Equal chance for everyone. Systematic, there is a fixed interval. The name systematic, fixed interval. Every third household, every 10th member in the list. Right? Stratified, divided by category. Strata, you remember. Everything is easy. Simple random, randomly pick. Systematic, systematically designed. Stratified, strata, upper class, middle class, lower class. So that means divided by category, age, gender, or strata. Cluster, select the clusters. So here clusters can be heterogeneous. In a cluster, upper, lower, middle class, rich, poor, women, female, male, or urban, rural, Catholic, Protestants, everything will come. But that's not in case of stratified. Stratified, across the strata, heterogeneity will be there, but within the strata, it is homogeneous. So we got the difference between cluster and that example, state, then district, and village. Right? Then convenience sample, that's easy access you have. So the nearby respondents, I have my friend sitting with me, I'll look at it. And purposive sampling, that's chosen purposely, like a specific age group I select, 40 to 50. Quota sampling, so you'll be looking to fill the quota, like 40% female, 60% male. Snowball, that's the chain referral. I go to one person, then he refer, like the drug addict study or sex worker study. So this complete the revision on sampling, guys. But go through the actual class where I have taken, I think I spent 2 hours, right? Or one and a half hour, 2 sessions. I think we took 1.5 session. I think I took, right? For probability sampling, I think I've taken 1 session, and then another 40-45 minutes I've taken from non-probability also. But go through that, the PDF also, and that's it, guys. Thank you so much. If you're looking for any test series or classes or mentorship on sociology, get in touch with us. See you there.